Hey everyone, welcome back to another Diablo movie review. Today we're going to be talking about Toy Story 5. Toy Story 5 was directed by Andrew Stanton and it stars, Tom Hanks as Woody and Tim Allen as Buzz and also Joan Cusack as Jessie, who plays a much larger role in the film. I would say is the center point of this film. But yeah, let's just jump right into the movie. I saw it last week when it came out, and I have to be like straight off the front. I think this might be my second favorite of the Toy Story films. Number three, which I think everyone kind of universally agrees should have been quote unquote the last film. It was just such a perfect end to that story and like that trilogy. And I was so kind of bummed when they announced Toy Story 4 and then Toy Story 4 came out and I saw it and I wasn't, you know, particularly thrilled with it. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but for me, it had to like kind of justify whether fair or unfair. It had to justify its creation, which I didn't feel it did. So but it made I think like over like $1.2 billion, something like that. It made a bunch of money. So of course they were gonna keep it going. This is a franchise that has grown up with generations at this point. Um, and even for which I don't particularly enjoy with a good film, or I didn't particularly enjoy, it's still a good film. So it was kind of a given that eventually they were going to make a fifth Toy Story. But unlike the fourth, I think the fifth one actually has an interesting plot. And for those that may not know, Toy Story 5 deals with technology in, coming into like not coming into the world, but coming into children's lives in a much more prominent way than we had, when I was a kid or, previous generations when they were when they were kids and they had toys because toys are for play, but like the movie said, technology is for everything. And I think this topic of how technology is playing a role in development, socializing, and learning, and all these different aspects of growing up is a really interesting plot point, and I think it creates and clearly did like really interesting storytelling. Um, but yeah, you have the lily pad, played by Greta Lee, who enters the world, and Bonnie starts playing with lily pad because she wants to connect with kids her age around her who she's the only one at this point playing with toys. All these other kids are iPad kids. They're stuck to their technology, and yes, they're interacting and playing with each other, but it's not the same way, I or other generations played as kids. We went outside, not saying that kids don't go outside anymore, but it's much more interacting, through these games, through, social media or, TikTok, things of this nature. And that really creates this barrier almost it creates a barrier in how you interact with others and also really affects your mental health and how you grow up and like the rate and speed you grow up, and that's like such a like an integral part of the story is that kids nowadays are growing up faster than we did or other generations did as kids because technology kind of speeds everything up, right? You have everything at the touch of your finger, right? You have learning videos, you can talk to people, you can watch like videos, play games, like you can do all these things at the touch of your finger, and the rate that you're growing up is exponentially like increased by that fact. Um, so Jesse and the other toys, they're trying to get Bonnie to make friends in the way they think is best. And so this whole plot just kind of kicks off with toys versus technology. And they have a lot of twists and turns and adventures, and the film is just so fun and so good. And I think it's actually such an important film for families to go out and see. And I think it's a conversation that if you're a parent right now, you probably are already having with your partner about how you are raising your kids. Because I don't have kids, but if I had a kid, you know, even when I was growing up, when technology was starting to, become much more prominent, right? People around me had, iPod Touch, the iPhone came out, all this stuff. Like it was every year it felt like technology was taking it another step. We went from this little iPod, oh my god, the iPod Nano, to the iPod Touch, and that was a huge jump. And now kids were having iPods and being able to play Temple Run and all this on their phone. And my parents, which I'm very grateful for, kind of held us back from partaking in some of that technology, from having phones until we were in high school. And even when I was in high school, my first phone was a flip phone. It was a flip phone like Android. Um, I didn't get an iPhone until like late sophomore year, maybe junior year of high school. So people around me had them, but I was kind of late, and I think that was a benefit to mine. But this movie touches on that subject of like, is technology something you should give your kids? Like we have the whole term iPad kids because kids now are just so addicted to these screens because they can do so many different things with it, and it's just mesmerizing them and holding their attention, and they're just addicted to it, and they just cannot leave it. And I think that's an important conversation to look at about how, as a parent, you kind of weigh that because there are clearly benefits to technology. There's stuff you can do on it. Like I know parenting can even get tiring, and sometimes you just need your kid to be distracted for a little bit. Um, but then you're also introducing them to a much larger world, and you're introducing them to interactions or things that kids maybe that age shouldn't be using or interacting with. And also, people say things online behind screens that maybe they necessarily wouldn't say to your face, and that that readily availability of seeing what others think and what others say about you or things you like has a lot of impact on your mental health, which again this movie touches on. And yeah, I think this movie is going to generate a lot of good conversation. I think it's during a conversation that we've already been having for years as a society. And I know this isn't even much of a review, it's more of a dissection of the film, but I just think it's so important to kind of highlight some of the aspects this film is touching on. Um, and I'll dive more into the film here in a bit, but I probably have to do a little bit of spoilers. Um, but yeah, to kind of get back to more of the film side of it, I think the animation is great. They do a new kind of animation style when they are in their play mode, which is more like hand drawn, hand painted look, which I thought looked amazing. It was so good, and their animation, Pixar animation's always been stellar, but again, they topped themselves. I thought it was fantastic. I thought all the characters were really good and had really interesting plot points and storylines, and they really played well off each other. Jessie is easily, like I said, she's kind of the focus of the film. Her relationship with Bonnie and some of like Jessie's own trauma from her past and her previous owners, playing a big part in her decisions and her actions. But she really, really shines. And some of the newcomers, some of the newcomer toys, uh, are very are real fun, and they have some really good jokes, some really funny, even like adult little humors for like parents in the audience that I thought was really well done and good. The Buzz Squad, I think that's what they're called. The Buzz Squad was really funny and really good. Uh, that whole kind of side plot, which at first I was like, what where is this going? But it really like comes together at the end. Um, and yeah, obviously good to see Woody and Buzz together. I thought, especially after uh, the last one, so Toy Story 4, I thought maybe they were kind of sunsetting those like more original characters like Woody, going their separate ways, and they were gonna, if they were ever gonna make a sequel, which obviously they ended up doing, it would focus more on Jesse and some of the other toys rather than um, our old, you know, Buzz and Woody. And again, Jesse is the focal point, but Woody and Buzz still play a part, and I'm glad they're there. And it's always good seeing that iconic duo, work together to solve a problem. But now I'm gonna really quick jump into spoilers. So this is spoiler warning. I'm just gonna clap. That's my spoiler warning. Um, yeah, where to start? With Lily Pad taking Bonnie's um, like attention and her using it to try to connect with other kids. Uh, it is so applicable to just everything you see nowadays, and especially later in the film when these kids, where she becomes so self-conscious, she wants to play with her toys, she wants to play with Jess, she wants to play with Buzz and Slinky and all these guys, and the kids laughing at her, and this whole perception of how society and others see you, um, is not just something I would say even like that's necessarily for kids, although kids are much more, I would say, vulnerable to it. That's something we see across the board, no matter what age group you are, because when you are always seeing things online, whether it's others, saying things about you or others posting stuff, and you are kind of comparing yourself to that, or things of that nature, right? It has such an effect on your mental health. And seeing Bonnie, cry and get so down because these other kids are kind of bullying her, being mean about the fact that she still plays with toys, and uh, kind of demeaning her for being different, is something no child should have to go through, and yet it happens probably every day now. Um, and it doesn't end, whether you're in a classroom and someone makes fun of you, now that follows you home, and there's like a hard time escaping that. And then, especially when technology or that perceived, benefit technology is the way that you're connected to everyone. If you're not using it, you're not connected to everyone, you're kind of an outcast, which is what Bonnie feels like. Um, which just puts her in a very conflicted mode where she doesn't really want to do this or use this, or be friends necessarily with even these kids, but she feels like a societal pressure to do this because she doesn't feel, she feels left out, she feels isolated. Um, and I apologize for the cat noise in the background if you hear it. Um, but yeah, so good. But they also, I think, did a good role of just not being like it's black and white. Technology is bad. Toys are good. Don't give your kids technology, because they also showcase like there's like good learning tools from it. Even though if you're on technology, you're always connected to everyone at all times, which might not be a good thing. Technology does connect you with others, which connected her with the Force girl whose name I don't remember, but her connection with that Force girl and making that friend her first like real friend, that wouldn't have been possible without technology to kind of bring them together. So I think obviously in the first half of the movie it's very black and white. Technology is bad. It's again meets the bad guy, right? But then by the end of it, they're working together because they understand there is a middle ground where it can be used to the benefit of both the toys and Bonnie, and help her connect to friends who she can play with and play with the toys with, who more aligns with who she is and her values and things of that nature. But it was super well done. The Buzz Squad that I mentioned earlier, uh, and their whole Star Command, and their fascination with Jesse just following orders to a T, and them being also like drones and stuff, was just they were hilarious in my opinion, like just so good. Uh, and I just really liked them. And then Woody and Buzz, like they had their kind of like side role that wasn't, I would say, integral part, but they did their part to help Jessie, who again was the primary focus, and she's over in the horse girl's house, and meeting that older technology, like the what is it called, the pooty device. I can't remember the one that helped the girl use the bathroom when she was little. But Jesse, even starting to like coming to the realization that some, not technology isn't inherently bad. It can be helpful, it can be good. Technology can be a means to connect, but also a means for play in a healthy capacity. And then Woody and Buzz coming to Jesse's kind of rescue, not rescue. That's not the right word, but coming to her support, and Jesse, dealing with the her trauma, or yeah, of being when her how she perceives it as abandoned by her previous owner. She doesn't feel abandoned by Andy by any means, but by her first owner. Um, she feels that she was abandoned, and she kind of also blames technology for that. In that case, it was phones. It was her first owner, talking to her girlfriends on the phone and chit chatting, and that's when she felt like she was abandoned and left behind. And her realization that when this horse girl is actually living in the same house that her first owner did, um, and realizing at the tree that her first owner named her daughter after Jessie because that's how big of an impact Jessie had on her life, and realizing that she wasn't abandoned. She helped her first girl grow up and become the woman that she did, and then that was passed on to her daughter, and therefore, and so on, so on, and just you never know how, and this is a big point of the movie, you never know how long you're going to be in someone's life, right? You never know the impact you're going to have on someone's life, right? Whether you're Jesse or the potty toy or anything like that, right? But you should appreciate the time that you were there with them, and also you don't know the impact that your time with them will have on the rest of your lives. Um, which is such a wholesome and like very like almost eye opening uh topic. It's like you think that you just met this like you could have just met a person and kind of been in their life in passing, but you could have really done a long impact, like long standing impact on their life that you might not have been aware of. And it's just appreciating those connections and the time you have with anyone in your life at any point. Um, and that you also like we grow, we evolve, we do kind of move on, but we carry those lessons and those things that we had from those relationships, from those experiences with us, and make us the person we are in the future. Um, so I thought that was such a great message and so important. And I think I will probably not probably I will most definitely watch this film again in theaters when I get a chance. Because this has just been an absolutely phenomenal film. So for me, 5 out of 5 stars. It is amazing. Only second to Toy Story 3, but highly recommend it. Go check it out. Toy Story 5 now in theaters.